My name is Jason DeBoer. I'm a large river fisheries ecologist with the Illinois Natural History Survey. I'm here today interviewing Dr. Philipp at the University of Illinois. First question for you. How did you become involved in the American Fisheries Society, and why did you decide to be part of the fisheries management section?
Goes way back. I was doing research as a postdoc over at in the genetics department, and we were doing some population genetics work, and Mike Conlon, who was the then brand new chief of fisheries, came over to talk about things, about us doing some work with them, about them using some of their DJ dollars to support research, which hadn't happened in a number of years. And we had a special conference out at Allerton, which is a facility here at the university. And there were a bunch of fish people that came in. And that's when I first heard about the American Fisheries Society. And they were all spectacular people, all involved with doing the right things for fisheries, and et cetera. And I think I just up and joined right at that moment. And I think it was probably 1976. And that's, I've been a member ever since.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did being involved with AFS help your career?
Wow, it provided the entire network that I deal with right now. By going to meetings, both first at the chapter level and then at the Midwest and Parent Society levels, you instantaneously got to meet hundreds, if not thousands, of fisheries biologists, really, and find out who was doing what. And from there, you started, you could easily get together with them to do research projects, to share ideas and interests, etc. And probably a lot of going to visit them and just going fishing together. So I think the American Fisheries Society provides me with the opportunity to go to virtually any one of 50 states in the U.S., find somebody that I know and have been friends with through AFS, and probably 49 of those 50 states I could go fishing, probably that next day, and we could have a good time. And it's very interesting, some of the conversations that I've had in a fishing boat about AFS.
Fair enough. Did you have a mentor or some other individual who greatly influenced your career?
Yes, I'll think of two. Probably the person that influenced me most was one of my earliest babysitters, Jenny Brown. And when I was 4, she took me fishing because I was too little to go to day camping with all the rest of the people that were, all the rest of my siblings and my cousins, etc. So we went down. Well, first we started at night going out on the golf course. This is in the Poconos. Going out on the golf course and catching worms, which is about as cool as it gets, right? With a flashlight. And then that next morning we took 2 cane poles that she brought and went down and caught sunfish off of big nesting areas. And we sat there, and I can remember to this day, I think I was 4, maybe 5, watching sunfish spawning, and then we'd catch some fish. And we did this a number of times for 2 or 3 summers. We'd usually catch a whole whack of bluegills. We'd go back, she'd clean them all. I'd eat 2 and she'd eat like 30. But so she was the one that really turned me on to fishing, because none of my family fished. I mean, to them, the wilderness was beyond the white out of bounds stakes on a golf course. You don't go back there because there's bad things that live there. But so I changed very much through that. But then professionally, it was really when I came here, because my PhD was in biochemistry, but really molecular biology, and we were doing genetic work. And I came here to work with Greg Witt and Bill Childers at the Natural History Survey. Greg was very much a geneticist in the mold that I had been brought up in. Bill, however, was a bass fisherman, a serious bass fisherman, which was basically my passion. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he and I had a tremendous relationship until he retired and died, a few years after that. But he, probably more than anything, got me into the fisheries aspect of what I do, and fish behavior and fishing and all of those things. He was really, he's probably the best fisherman I've met in my life, and one of the real true pioneers in bass genetics and bass conservation, really.
I wonder how many professionals in AFS or in fisheries science in general started out like you did, getting that urge at a young age just to be outdoors and to fish, but then didn't realize we could make it into a career until later in life. I didn't get that until halfway through my undergrad, that I realized that I got this internship in the summer that I really don't enjoy doing. The first thing I want to do is get out of work and go fishing.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I found a professional advisor when I was an undergrad who could help me get that get that education and make fisheries a career, so.
Yes,
Interesting.
I agree with you on that. And I think that most fisheries biologists, most fisheries professors, most whatever, are in the business because of their interest and passion about fish.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever consider other careers? And if you did, why?
Not really. I mean, I'll give you a story. Back in New Jersey, where I grew up, we took these aptitude tests in eighth grade, and I took mine, and then you'd come back 3 weeks later, and you'd sit down, your parents would go in, and you'd sit down with your teacher, and they'd tell you what you should be doing in your career, right? And when they got mine out, all my scores were too low to be good for anything. You know, and I was a little taken back, as my parents were, but the teacher said it's impossible because it's a total sum game. You have to score up. You didn't score enough. You must not have answered a bunch of questions. As it turned out, I was missing 2 pages that were cleaved together, and I didn't get there. But anyway, so he said, he was a great guy, and I was getting good grades, so he says, I'm not worried about you, Dave. He says, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I can remember looking at it and I said, I want to do chemistry with fishes. And I think probably much that was what I always wanted to do. I could have been more genetic or more molecular at times than I probably was when in my beginning, and then I've gradually gone over more to the fisheries, fish behavior, fish reproductive ecology side, and really now more to bigger style conservation activities.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you think AFS can help prepare our profession for the challenges ahead?
Goes back to the networking again, and the conferences and the information. You know, by exposing young undergraduates to the spectrum of people in AFS, they can see a lot of the potential trajectories and how to get there, and that it's not this over difficult situation to get to become a professor at a university or this or that or what you want to do. So it can show them, it serves as a model, but it can also help with some continuing education workshops and things like that, the student subsection, you know, all of the different sections out there really help get people thinking along common lines on how to do different things and make things work. And that networking also shows just how many jobs there are available in good times and some even in bad times, you know, but I think it's all the communications structure and networking that AFS provides.
I think that's one thing I've come to realize, having been in fisheries about 10 years now, is I've reached that critical mass to where I can go to a conference and not sit in on any talks unless they really interest me. I can spend enough time catching with people who I've met throughout the years or meeting new people who have similar research interests to mine, management interests to mine. So that's been an enjoyable part of my maturation in fisheries.
Yeah, exactly. And even, you know, potential students, potential hires and all of that, when you see this great young person go up and just knock the place dead with this excellent presentation, that's the person you want to be hiring or coming on as a student.
The future has promise.
Yes, yes.
What does being inducted into the Hall of Excellence mean to you?
Oh, well, I think it's a great honor, obviously. It came as a total surprise to me. And I joked because when I accepted the award, et cetera, I said that, you know, it was good testament to the conservation genetics work that we had been doing. And I said, but I was actually amazed because I had been such a pain in the ass to so many managers and administrators, you know, and people laughed. And Jeff Boxrucker was in the middle, and right after that, he came up to me and he goes, oh, I got a kick out of that pain in the ass comment, because he said, when they announced you, I turned to the guy next to me and I said, wow, this is great, this is amazing, because Dave's been such a pain in the ass to everybody in here. So it means a lot. It means also that I don't think that would have happened 25 years ago. That the science, the society is evolving in the way that they're looking at things. There's way more understanding of evolution and ecology that's going on. There's a clearer picture of what conservation really means.
Okay. What do you believe is or was your biggest contribution to fishery science?
Well, I hope I'm just getting into it right now, but certainly, well, there are a few things. The population genetics work that we did on bass, and some of the early conservation work, showing the downsides of stocking non-native stocks or species such as Florida bass and what happens to all of that, I think that may have created the biggest upheaval in the fisheries profession that I might be called responsible for.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of other people out there that are doing similar things. That was a big deal, I think, and also the work we've been doing now on nesting bass, fishing for nesting bass, and then how that translates with fisheries-induced evolution. And that's kind of where we're going right now with some of the specific lines that we have, looking at real how angling is impacting the behavior of our fish and the fish populations, et cetera, how they're reacting to that. Not from an anti-fishing standpoint at all, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, that it's interesting because there are those in the tackle manufacturers business that think I and some of my students are anti-fishing, and I can tell you that is not the case.
Further from the truth.
Yes, I've been there for, I've been trying to fish more days every year for the last 30 years, and I've pretty much succeeded every year somehow, so that's pretty good. But really, I think, hopefully, the biggest thing that will be, my career might help out is the formation of our Fisheries Conservation Foundation, which, if it takes off, and is taking off, is a really highly valuable activity. And so we formed this foundation with the goal of getting science in front of the people that are making decisions about natural resources, whether they like it or not, so that they can see the science. It's difficult in the U.S. because there's such a long train to get all the way up to the top.
Mm-hmm.
Although the knowledge base all the way up is a lot bigger, and there's just a lot of layers with states, communities, and feds, and all that. It's a very complex system. We are doing some work in other countries like the Bahamas and Bhutan, where we are conducting some small, very pointed research projects to look at where fish spawn that are feeding directly into their conservation policies. So in the Bahamas, they are citing national parks and marine protected areas based on the information we're finding about where bonefish are migrating to and spawning. And in Bhutan, we're launching a project where we're looking at where mahseer spawn, and that will impact their whole hydroelectric dam construction policy, which is being massaged with India right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's a highly politically charged activity over there. It will be very interesting, but we go all the way. In both instances, we sit down and talk to the Prime Minister about this.
What words of wisdom would you share with students, graduate students, undergraduate students, and then young professionals?
Well, one thing would be is I would ask them, are you looking at this fisheries profession, what you're doing here? Is this a paycheck? Is it a career? Or is it your life? And if it's a paycheck, you're in the wrong profession. If it's your life, then you're in the right profession. Then how you treat it as your career is what will make you a success or not. So if your passion is fish and your passion is getting out and doing all of this, then you're in the right profession. So that's one key thing, to really sit down and think about things, because if you're not, most people are underpaid, overeducated and underpaid in this profession, and so the competition is very high. And if you're not willing to put your life into it, then you're not going to compete very well. And you'll be taking the place of somebody who would do that and put their life into it. That's one thing. The second thing, for anybody in fisheries, I would say, if you're not already in the American Fisheries Society, you better get in there by tomorrow, because that is the network that you need to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
That is your outlet for providing your input into things, your research ideas, your management ideas. That's where you get probably the best training, is at these meetings. And I would say to fisheries administrators everywhere across the country and Canada that if they don't provide resources for their biologists to get to AFS meetings, not just the chapter meetings, but regional and parent society meetings, that they're doing a disservice to their state and to their scientists.
I'd like to ask you your thoughts about some of the other inductees in the Hall of Excellence. You have the list in front of you. Which fellow inductees influenced you the most, and how?
In that list, Carl Sullivan, because I have a picture of my wife Julie and I, sitting with Carl at a meeting down in Missouri, where he said, you guys need to form a genetics section. And I looked at Carl and I said, no, we're not getting into that. It's going to be a lot of effort. He goes, no. He goes, it won't be. But even if it is, it's going to be worth it. And we sat down and talked long and hard, as we had done several years previous, and eventually he convinced me that that was something that we needed to do. And I'm kind of proud to see that, how strong this genetics section has gotten. It's never fallen below its 200 minimum. It's always been a voting crowd out there. We probably have as many members right now as we've ever had, and it's very viable. We almost always have society meeting symposia. Clearly it's a major topic across conservation in fisheries across the world right now. I also knew Dave Willis quite well personally. We did talk and shared ideas on a couple of projects. We never actually worked together, but we always met up with each other at meetings, particularly the Midwest meetings, and shared a beer before. Yeah, I was sad to hear the news about Dave, because he was such a great guy.
That was the one name that leapt off the page when I was reading through the list. I knew Ken Carlander and Homer Swindle by reputation, but I knew Dave in person. My advisor, Kevin Pope, was one of Dave's students, and I met Dave at a Dakota chapter meeting when I was a grad student in Nebraska. The way that he shared what he knew with the people he was with was really exciting to see.
Yes, and that was clear because he had so many good students that went places. So that's really a good measure of how a university professor does things, is how many people go out and re-preach his or her mantra.
Yeah, I'm a proud grandchild in the Willis Nation. So.
Yes. Well, you should be proud. Yeah.
That's all the questions that I have for you, Dave. I thank you for your time on behalf of both AFS and the Fisheries Management section, but also personally, this was a treat for me.
Oh, well, thank you,
Thank you
Jason.
very much.
Okay, great.